New polling from one of those key battleground states shows that former President Trump still has a tight grip on the Republican Party. In the latest Emerson College survey, 58% of GOP voters in the great state of New Hampshire say that Trump is their preferred candidate for the 2024 Republican primary. That is a 41-point lead over the second-place finisher, Governor DeSantis. In third, with just 7%, is New Hampshire's own governor, Chris Sununu. But in a hypothetical general election matchup, Sununu is the only Republican candidate who could beat President Joe Biden, according to this poll. Sununu said earlier this year that he was considering a run for president, but has not officially jumped into the race. Joining us now, national politics reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Julia, good morning. So let's talk about the state of the Republican field, and let's start with Governor Sununu, actually, he's one of representative, perhaps, of some of the lesser-known Republicans considering jumping in the race. Talk to us, though, about the uphill climb that someone like he faces, considering the poll we just showed where Governor DeSantis, who is not a lesser name, who is widely considered the most formidable challenger to Trump, is getting crushed in that poll and many others we're seeing across the nation.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's really interesting because I think a lot of this polling sort of mirrors the problem that Republicans had in 2022, where in primaries, a lot of these more, I don't want to say moderate Republicans, but maybe more mainstream, more establishment Republicans, like a Governor Sununu, for example, don't do as well in primaries, but they seem to be doing better in general elections. And that's going to be an issue for Republicans up and down the ballot this coming election. They're going to have to find a way to really explain to Republican primary voters that they need to keep that general election strategy in mind going forward. But, look, I don't think it's necessarily surprising that Governor Sununu is not polling as well as maybe, say, a Ron DeSantis or a Donald Trump in a Republican primary. Yes, he is the governor of that state. However, we do know that Donald Trump is simply the more well-known name. And we know that with presidential politics, Ron DeSantis's name has been more synonymous with 2024 talk than Chris Sununu. We know that Chris Sununu is still considering it, hasn't had the same national presence that Ron DeSantis had. So I think those numbers are fascinating, but a real issue for Republicans going into a general election.
Yeah, it shows that there might be a path for a mainstream Republican in 2024 in the general. But it sure seems like it would be difficult to get there through the GOP primary, which is only moving more to the right. Julia, you've got some new reporting today on another GOP governor who might jump in the 2024 mix. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Governor Glenn Youngkin from Virginia is really also like Governor DeSantis, sort of traveling the country and being more of a national presence. He's not going as much to these early primary states as Governor DeSantis is. However, he's not ruling a potential presidential bid out. He was on CNBC's Squawk Box, for example, last week. He's going on another network for a town hall tomorrow to do town hall on education, his major issue. So he is very much trying to become a national presence in the media while meeting with donors in states like New York. Governor Youngkin is seen as someone who really wrote the playbook for Republicans going into 2021. He sort of defied expectations and won election in a blue-leaning purple state like Virginia. So I think a lot of Republicans, like Chris Sununu, say someone like Governor Glenn Youngkin could do very well in a general election, despite the fact that he is very conservative. At the same time, though, he doesn't seem to be registering as much with Republican primary voters. It's interesting, Jonathan, because he has a lot of the same views that Donald Trump and Governor DeSantis have, and him and Governor DeSantis policy-wise are actually very similar. But stylistically, they couldn't be more different. They have very different personalities. Ron DeSantis is much more in-your-face, much more brash. Governor Youngkin is definitely more of a calmer presence, someone who is probably more diplomatic in how he speaks to Democrats, the media, voters and such. So, going forward, it'll be interesting to see how that style plays out in the Republican primary. But like I said, polls show that this is still a Trump-DeSantis race.
Yeah, and that's been sort of the takeaway this week. Maybe it's a Trump-DeSantis race, but Trump is heavily favored. And the more candidates that jump in, probably the better it is for Trump, too, because we know his base is going to stay with him. The Hill's Julia Manchester, thank you for your reporting this morning. We really appreciate it.